Let's go. Come on in, let's go to where the pictures show, where the hero wins and the monster grins, and everybody knows that face up in those bright projector lights.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Also Starring. This time on our Halloween special, we're going to be talking about Poltergeist, which was directed by Tobe Hooper, who also directed the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which we talked about last time. This movie came out in 1982, and it was written and produced by Steven Spielberg. And some argue that he actually directed the movie, or at least directed enough of it to have kind of stolen it away from Tobe Hooper. It stars Jo Beth Williams as Diane. She was also in The Big Chill and a bunch of other things that I've never seen. Craig T. Nelson plays Steve, her husband. He was Coach in the classic TV comedy series called Coach.
I feel like he gets pigeonholed into Coach.
So much.
And then who's the guy that played the Sandman in Spider-Man 3?
Oh, from Wings? I don't know his name. But
See what I'm saying? He's Wings.
Totally. He's Wings. And
these like guys have like these
Coach.
sitcoms from like 30 years ago that's all people remember them from. It blows my mind. Anyway,
I mean, I scanned Craig T. Nelson's IMDb page and I didn't see anything else of note, even though he's been in a bunch of other shit. But he is the dad in The Incredibles, so he's at least got that going for him.
Oh yeah, okay, but yeah, you don't see him, so it's different. But fucking Coach, right?
I mean, I liked Coach when it was on TV.
I don't think I ever watched it. I remember my aunt and uncle watched it, but I never watched it myself.
Yeah, it's of that like Cheers era.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very much so.
And that also stars a young actress by the name of Heather O'Rourke, who plays Carol Ann.
Does she die?
She died at 12 years old while making Poltergeist 3.
Crazy.
Which is part of the reason why this movie is considered one of those cursed movies.
Hmm.
But the funny thing about her was she was actually in a lot of things. She has a lot of credits on IMDb for different TV shows like Chips and Webster and Happy Days. For someone who only lived to be 12 years old, she actually did like a lot of work, which is interesting.
Parents are pimping her out, trying to get some money, huh? That's too bad.
Also, yeah, makes it all the more tragic because who knows what she might have done. But
a rising star.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. A rising star, lost too young. But this movie, one of the earliest scary movies that I saw in my life because it's famously PG.
Mm-hmm.
So kids could watch it, even though it's actually pretty terrifying if you're a kid.
It's PG because of Big Swinging Dick Spielberg coming in and like basically saying like, yep, this is not going to be PG-13. This is going to be PG. And when you have the power, you got to wield it.
Exactly. This is the movie that I always reference when I make that argument. As long as you make characters that you care about, a horror movie will be scary because you're invested and you care about what happens to them.
Yeah.
This is like the polar opposite of Texas Chainsaw Massacre in a way, because that movie has no characters that you care about.
That movie's scary because the setting is so nasty and like the villain that they came up with. I don't know how Tobe Hooper dreamed up Leatherface, but his like ability to like put a menacing figure on film like that. I mean, he's still scary looking. This is creepy. This movie, you're right. They care about the people and the backstories are cool. And it's a driving force in the movie. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting you make that point because there really isn't a monster in this movie. I mean, you see different ghouls or ghosts or whatever, but there's no...
It's corporate greed. That's the real monster.
Exactly. Oh. There's no big like face to put on the Poltergeist franchise. I mean,
they
the
tried
iconic...
at the end, right, with the big face that comes out and
but it's so brief and it's so like nondescript.
Yeah. This also, if you have a medical condition, you are not allowed to watch this movie if strobe lights affect you because they are
the flashing
in
lights.
full effect in this movie.
Dude, yeah, they're intense strobes at the end.
No, in the beginning too. I mean, the movie starts out
True.
strobe-tastic. It's just
True,
like,
true with the static. The
mhm.
static. Just to explain for people who haven't seen it or who are too young to remember this, TV didn't used to be 24 hours. When I was a little kid, it would go till like 3, 4 a.m. or something like that. And then they'd play like the national anthem, and then it would just go to static.
It was called the sign off.
And then it would start up again at whatever, like 6 a.m. or something like
Yeah.
that. Every time I watch this movie, that's the first thing you see. And I always forget that that's the opening image. And I'm always immediately brought back to my childhood. I remember coming downstairs and someone had like fallen asleep with the TV on and the whole room just, strobing out from the static and being scared and like running back upstairs. It's such a time capsule.
You're right. It captures kind of something that's lost to history. We probably won't experience that again. And it's kind of like, you had to live through it in order to understand it or fully appreciate it. It's nothing really like great about it, I guess, but it's
It's not like
you,
profound
if you
or
didn't
anything.
live through that, you're never going to experience that again, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I dig it. I don't remember that happening for me. You're a wee bit older than I am, so you might have had a few years in between, and but it's something I remember seeing on TV represented or in other movies represented. I think they did it in Gremlins also, or anytime that like somebody would fall asleep, they would kind of show. And then it's also an interesting way to start a movie out with playing the national anthem because you're like almost like, what am I watching? Like this doesn't have anything to do with ghosts or anything like that. And then then it slowly unfolds. So pretty expert storytelling. Yeah. I think the editing is really strong in this movie too. Like how they cut things together is pretty cool. They had to work with pretty rudimentary, special effects for the time, but they did it really good with the rotoscoping, and the creature effects are very good. And I think they stand up
for the time. I mean, you look at it now and it feels hokey and dated because it's obvious.
I still think they're not bad for what we're watching. There's definitely movies that are much worse. The scene that I think is the most dated was probably the guy that goes into the closet.
The guy whose face melts off.
His face melts off. It's a bit like the scene with the T-800 in Terminator 1 when he goes and has to repair himself. And there's this like terrible edit where he like takes his sunglasses off and he goes from being a human into like being like claymation face. And then like he's like obviously got a ton of makeup on. And then, when he's done doing his surgery, he puts his sunglasses back on and he just like turns back into a normal person. He's just like, all right.
Yeah, I watched this with my roommate, and when it did that cut to his fake face, she was like, oh my God, like that's terrible.
I have a feeling that that's why James Cameron has gone out of his way to make special effects his like passion for like the last 40 years, because he's like, I will never, ever let that shit happen again. I'm going to put people in a pool for 10 years and videotape them with the highest tech cameras. And then people will watch it and they will love me.
Oh my God. I can't wait for Avatar 2, 3, and 4.
See, he's smart. He just makes you wait. He's like, oh, you
just
because
I'm
shitty,
like so curious now at this point.
We'll be like, almost old men by the time it comes out. So the mom, she's a bit aloof, right? In this movie, do you agree?
I mean, yeah, they're like,
are they on Easy Street? They're both kind of they're
former
rich.
Hippies. I mean, they're like they're yuppies. They're hippies turned yuppies, I would say. I was going to mention when you brought up the thing about the Star Spangled Banner or the national anthem, it makes a kind of sense. Like when we were talking about Jaws being a very American movie, like this is a very American movie about suburbia in a way, even though it's a ghost movie and all that other stuff. It's like the heart of the movie is the suburban family. Yeah, I mean, the mom is kind of goofy. That was another thing that my roommate pointed out, like when the chairs start moving around and stuff, she seems very
okay with it.
Yeah, like she's just like thinks this is cool.
Like put her children like in the ghost path so they slide on the ground. Like why?
Yeah, she like draws this track on the floor where the chairs have been moving, and then she puts the little girl there with a helmet on, and she slides across the floor. I love that stuff because it's kind of like
it's a great shot. It's a great scene.
If it feels more real to me, like if you were that mom and you were just home alone all day,
I would have moved the second I saw those chairs flip up. I would have been like, "We gotta go. Let's let somebody else." This is it. We're out.
Yeah, but you've seen Poltergeist, so you know it's bad.
Nah.
I mean,
Does chairs flip up by themselves like that? I'd be like,
that's
that's it. I'm
a
out.
great moment.
We'll put the Nest Cam in the corner, and I'll let it record, and I'll just go down the street, and we can watch what happens. Fuck this place. That's what I would do.
I think that by the end of the movie, that is a much stronger statement to make, like why they stay there any longer. But
yeah, there's
we'll get
like
to that.
some
We'll get to
serious
that.
like problems with them.
Some serious
staying
lapses
there.
in judgment.
Yeah, I mean, they got kind of a nice life. Like, I think she stays at home. He is very successful real estate salesman. He's sold a bunch of properties in the neighborhood that they live in. I mean, in 1982, I think they had like 4 TVs and like a hi-fi system, and they're just living the dream, right? Like, this is like it for America, right? And then, you know, when their kids go to bed, they just like roll J's and like make jokes with each other in the bedroom, and then just have kind of a nice life. It looked pretty good. Then everything and shit hits the fan.
Yeah. Then the TV people start talking to their little girl. Famous line from this movie. They're here.
Yeah.
The family discovers little Carol Ann talking to the TV, and then she turns and says they're here, and it's like, what? I remember watching that as a kid and just like, ugh, this gives you chills.
I think Craig T. Nelson and Carol Ann are the best actors in this movie. They're both super good. Yeah.
I like them. I like Jo Beth Williams a lot, actually. I think
she bugs because of the whole like when the construction dude is like eating out of their and she's like cool with it.
Yeah,
like,
she's just
laughing
at everything.
Jimmy or whatever, and I'm like, what in the hell? And then they're making cat calls at the daughter. Hey, was that Billy from Predator, by the way?
Dude, I think it might have been. I would have to
I
look.
wrote that down. I called him a child predator in this.
Apparently that guy's a total creep, so it would make sense.
Yeah, didn't they have to have security on that set in Predator because he was like they thought he was gonna like beat people up? I was like, he's nuts.
They're like catcalling the teenage daughter, and the mom's just like laughing it off in the kitchen.
Well, okay, but the daughter like flips them off, and I think she's laughing like, she's learning to like deal with like shitheads in life or something. Yeah. But then she does a few more things, and you're like, is she there, or she like, does she care about
the J
like, or is she just stoned all the time? Yeah, like everything's funny.
I guess I might have known a couple of moms like that as a kid, so it doesn't to me feel that unrealistic.
No, that's fair. It could be an accurate portrayal of 80s suburban life. And you grew up in a neighborhood that probably looked like this, right?
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, I did too.
Yeah. So where does it go from there?
It escalates extremely quickly is where it goes from there. It goes from being like normal, and then all of a sudden the tree comes alive and like tries to eat the sun. And then a tornado is coming at the same time. And then Craig T. Nelson's running outside, climbs up the mutant tree that's like alive all of a sudden, and then like pulls the sun out, and then the tree gets sucked up in the tornado, a little bit like Wizard of Oz style, like and
meanwhile the Carol Ann's being sucked into her closet. The whole room's being sucked into the closet.
So the TV is how they get out and how she sort of communicates on channel 12. But then in her room, in her closet, is like the gateway portal to the next world or whatever.
She gets sucked into this parallel dimension. So she's somewhere in the house, but nowhere that they can see her. They can hear her voice kind of at different times. And there are evidently these spirits who are attached to the house who are following her around. And then eventually we find out that there's also what they call the beast. There is some sort of actually like malevolent force that is trying to keep her there because all the other spirits are attracted to her life essence because she's actually still alive. I mean, all of that is kind of peripheral.
Yeah, it's not really part of the plot. The plot is more about dealing with the fact that she's gone and them kind of going through stages of like grief and then getting some help. And this is something that we talked about in Jaws, where they bring in like the quote unquote experts with all their like fancy whiz bang gadgets to try to like monitor what's going on and attach some sort of scientific, meaning to what they're experiencing. And there's I forgot how funny the line is. but one of the ghost hunters, if you want to call him that, is trying to convince Craig T. Nelson like how experienced he is, and he's detailing this scenario where he's videotaping like a time lapse of like a kid's toy Matchbox car, and it's moving across the room. He's like, yeah, it made it across the room
7 hours or
in
something.
7 hours. Yeah, and he's like, you could see it on time lapse video, and I have it all. He's extremely confident. And then Craig T. Nelson opens the bedroom door to his daughter's bedroom. And there's like insane chaos like erupting in there with like a tornado vortex of like all these toys flying around and like, you know, laughing maniacally. And you know, at one point a compass rose comes out and like, you know, a record meets it, and the needle from the compass is like playing the song on the record like in midair while it's floating through space. It's just like so crazy, and just the look on the guy's face is so good, and he's just like, so what about your 7-hour Matchbox car that you're telling me about? It's like so funny.
Yeah,
it's very good. This movie is really good. It's just filled with these kinds of moments and extremely good acting. I mean, there's some plot holes in it, and we were kind of talking about it before with there's points where you would just kind of want to leave or maybe get some of your family out, but they kind of wait too long, and you're kind of wondering why did you wait so long to do that? Like, you could have sent your other 2 kids to go live with grandma while you're like trying to get Carol Ann back out of the TV or whatever, right?
The teenage daughter pretty much dips out, which is like, yeah, that's believable. Like, she'd be like, I'm going to stay at a friend's house.
But then the son he leaves by himself with the dog, and then they split, which I was like,
he goes to stay with the grandmother. Well, things keep ramping up. They bring in this medium who's like this creepy little lady, and that's another point in the movie where some people might be like, what the fuck is this? I like it.
that part.
But she comes in and she's like, she basically lays down all the exposition of like what's going on because she can communicate with the spirit. She's sort of like the Quint of this movie in a way, like the Robert Shaw from Jaws. Like,
sort of.
Like you said, they bring in the professionals, the modern technology. It ultimately kind of falls to the old school person. She lays down the premise of what's going on with Carol Ann and why she's being held in this other dimension, and then they figure out, you know, that the entrance to the dimension is in the closet of the bedroom, and then that they send like these tennis balls through it, and they fall through the ceiling of the living room, and they figure out like, okay, that's the exit. So she comes up with a plan to get her out, and it basically, like, it's I know it's gonna sound goofy as hell, but it works in the movie. They just tie a rope around the mom and have her go into the closet, and then you don't see anything that happens on the other side, but you know, you understand that she finds Carol Ann and they pull her out. The scene before the mom goes in, where it's Craig T. Nelson and Jo Beth Williams, you know, Steve and Diane, the 2 parental figures of this movie, are like kissing each other in front of this crazy strobe light, like gateway to another dimension, and saying I love you, and saying like, you know, don't let go of the rope, and I never, and all that stuff. Like, when I watch that part of the movie, I always get choked up, and I don't know if it's just because I've seen this since I was a kid, but I have some sort of intense emotional connection to that scene. It's to do with the writing and the acting. The characters are so good, it's so believable, and you're just like so invested in this couple and their family that you feel that moment, and it's beautiful with all that strobe light and the music and everything. Just that's like the mic drop moment for me, and it's so great that I always forget that there's that whole last act of the movie that is fucking insane.
If you've never seen this movie, I envy you, because this is a kind of movie where like the first time watching it, you're in for something, right?
Yeah.
It's really hard to watch it again and have that effect. It's not that it takes anything away, but at this point, you don't know if she's ever going to come back, right? Like, you never know if they're going to get Carol Ann back, and then you don't know if she's going to go in there and get sucked into this portal also. They do a really good job of like kind of keeping you in the suspense of what's going on. They don't tell you like too many details. You know, even when they have these quote unquote experts that show up, they're not giving you all the answers about what is happening. And so it's a mix of really good writing, really good acting, like you mentioned, and then also just really good storytelling where they're not relying on special effects or anything to like make you believe that these people are in love with each other. They show you that they're in love with each other at the beginning, and
Yeah.
you would hate to see anything happen to them, and they have this
Yeah.
kind of like nice thing going on, and so it's just really like a nice package. And then you're right, then there's the third act and you're like, okay, why
I
would you
always
stay
forget
in this house?
Oh yeah. Okay.
Any
First of
longer
all,
after this?
first of all, no, you would be gone. You would
Yeah.
be like out like right away.
I
As
would've
soon as you got
left
the little
after
as soon as you got the little girl
after
back.
Tree,
you'd
I
be
would have
gone.
left. I would have been like, sorry, Caroline, we'll get you on
Would've
Child 12
abandoned.
at another TV. Let's go. No, you can't. You got to get Caroline back, but it's like you got Caroline.
They
Why
stay
do you
one more like night and day, apparently.
not just the night, but she does her hair and she's like taking a bath like it's no big deal, and it's like,
Yeah.
God damn it, what?
It's pretty dumb when you think about it, but it's worth it because the final confrontation with this demonic spirit is so nuts. I really realized it this time watching it, how this movie is kind of a slow ramp up to not that crazy of a fake out climax where they get Carol Ann back. That last scene with all the skeletons and like her running, like being thrown on the ceiling and running down the
Clown.
hallway, and like the clown comes alive.
Oh.
It just goes completely bonkers for like the last 10 minutes of the movie.
Yeah, it does.
It's awesome.
So we mentioned before corporate greed. I wasn't joking about that. So what happens is Craig T. Nelson's boss shows up and he's worried that he's going to go work for somebody else because he's not coming to work because he's looking for Carol Ann. He's looks sick because he's been staying up like nonstop for days and days.
Yeah, he's all stressed out.
So he's got like these gnarly sweat stains on him and he just looks like shit. And then he like takes him on this walk and he makes him walk up this like super gnarly hill. And then he gets to the top and they're having this conversation about how they're going to build these new houses here. And he's like, this is where your house is going to be. And it's going to overlook the whole valley. He's like, okay, well, that sounds great and everything, but what about this? And then like pans over and it like shows this huge graveyard. And he's like, oh, yeah, don't worry. We're having all that relocated just 5 minutes away. Why would it be a big problem for their loved ones to be 5 minutes away? No big deal. And he's like, well, all right, but it seems kind of shitty. Like, I don't know. There's been a lot of bad stuff going on around here. And he says, we've done it before. And then what you end up finding out is the entire neighborhood that they've put on, they took the headstones and they shifted those to another place, but they left all the bodies. And so they built all the houses all over the graveyard. And it's like this, it's not an Indian burial graveyard. He goes out of his way of saying that, but it's like a very old graveyard. It's, why do you say like the Western times or something like that? And,
their jewelry and stuff is very
yeah, I think he said 113 years old for the watch. So that's like what's driving this is like, so then they show the entire neighborhood and there's this like explosions happening and bodies shooting up everywhere, and it's like so gnarly. And then the guy that's the real estate developer, before shit hits the fan really badly, he shows up to Craig T. Nelson's house as they're sprinting out of the house, and this skeleton like shoots in his face, and the house is releasing all this weird energy, and it like knocks him over. And then he gets up and he's staring at the house, and then it like implodes on itself in this like origami folding action, and then it like shrinks into
cool
nothingness.
effect. Yeah.
If you've ever watched like the Halloween horror Simpsons episodes, they like
the Treehouse of Horror.
Yeah, they do a really good version of this, and it's just like, whoa. Like, I'm really glad that they got out of there because that looks like, they would have been screwed if they stayed there. Very cool.
Yeah. One little tidbit of behind the scenes stuff that is a part of the whole reason why this is considered a cursed movie, aside from Carol Ann dying and stuff, is those skeletons are real human skeletons.
Oh yeah, I remember hearing that. Yeah, that's so fucked up.
So gnarly.
It's probably from fucking Texas Chainsaw Massacre leftover props. Those look like real skeletons too.
Yeah.
Tobe Hooper is like, I got a bunch of these in the back. I want to use them. He's kind of a weird guy, I think. Oh, now that I think about it.
It bears a striking resemblance to the plot of a Twilight Zone episode called Little Girl Lost. I don't know if you've ever seen that.
I've seen a lot of Twilight Zone episodes. What happens in it?
It's one of the lesser known ones. A little girl falls into a parallel dimension, and I forget how they get her out, but it's essentially the same exact plot, just a lot shorter, obviously. And
I think
like,
there was a lot of like.
Nice.
Have you ever heard about how the Terminator was lifted from old episodes of The Outer Limits? So
no, but
I heard that maybe like 6 months ago, and then I went and watched the episodes that they were referring to. And there's like some kind of loose threads there that I could see how they could connect the two. But they went so far as if you watch the Terminator, the original, it'll say based on the story by Harlan Ellison at the beginning of it. And that's what they're talking about. They had to give him credit because he was going to sue them and be like, you stole my stuff from me. And they agreed with him. And then that's also Jim Cameron was probably like, son of a bitch. Like he was so pissed because he's like, I made this movie from nothing and whatever. And but yeah, I think there was a lot of, how could you not be influenced by stuff that you see when you're a kid, and then you make something later and you have more money and you can kind of hide with special effects. But it's like at the same time, if you're saying that they're lifting this from, I'd be like, what isn't lifted from these stories, right?
I'm not calling out plagiarism. I'm just saying, like, maybe Spielberg saw that as a kid and it stuck in his subconscious. I don't think it was even intentional. Maybe or maybe not. One thing that they do in the Twilight Zone episode that I'm really glad they didn't do in Poltergeist is show the other dimension, because I feel like it's kind of similar to the, like, you don't show the shark too much in Jaws. It's like, if you show that other dimension, it would have just gone into a cheesy place. And also keeping it as something that you can't see, you feel like you're with the family worried about Carol Ann, like what is happening to her, because you can't see any of it. And then when the mom goes in, you're like, I don't know what the fuck's happening while she's over there.
They directly show you. I mean, the camera pans over the doorway to the closet multiple times, and it's literally just a projector just showing strobes. I mean, you can't tell it's a projector, but that's what it is, right? It's just totally. Like that's, and then she cleverly like puts her body in the way so you can't like exactly tell what's going on in there. It's just some kind of light that's strobing out. They do a good job of making you really want to know, but they never tell you. And then they also kind of do tell you, like, oh yeah, it's this light and you have to stay away from it, and then you have to go to it. And they kind of have this weird back and forth about running to the light. And I'm sure there's some metaphor in there, but it's just it's really well done. This is the kind of movie when you're done with it, you're just like, that was a good movie.
Satisfying.
Yeah,
in a lot of ways. All right. Well, this was our second episode of our Halloween festival. I'm not sure what we're gonna do next, but
I think we're gonna do Mandy.
Maybe some John Carpenter. We were talking about doing Mandy.
Or John Carpenter. Yep.
I mean, I'm down with either one.
So Tobe Hooper doesn't have any other good movies. He's only directed straight trash. So it's not gonna be easy for us to pick another movie and go, let's get pumped on this. Like, we both like these other ones, so we're gonna try to find something good.
We're gonna sign off. We'll talk to you guys next time. Thanks for listening to Also Starring. I'm Dan.
And I'm Morgan.
And we'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.